I do, but not like that.
Okay.
The chicken wraps are really cheap.
Oh, really?
Like $2. Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah, it's really cheap.
Okay. All right. We're going to go live now. All right. Here we go.
And you'll play the European Bath and Body Works commercial?
No, they will. Go ahead. It is.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the program hosts and their guests and are not necessarily those of
Music's
WSTU,
awesome.
St. Mary's Episcopal Church, and Temple Beit Hayim. Products that may be mentioned are not necessarily intended as an endorsement. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited. And now, WPSL presents a priest and a rabbi. Call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. Now, here's your host.
Hey. It is Father Christian and Senior Rabbi Durbin. Senior Rabbi Durbin coming back at you on a beautiful day here in Stuart. It is a day, though, we are actually recording this a couple of days early just because, as we know, last week, we had the rabbi's beautiful bride in here.
Yes.
And she was a part of the Hillel Foundation, and she's over at FAU and talking about what it's like to be talking about sex with these young guns and knowing the realities of their own sexual life experiences. How do you bring them into a healthier place that really reflects more of maybe the health, the sex values that we read from our traditions, our respective traditions, whether it's Judaic or Christian, which was an awesome show. And I think we're going to continue with that. But I bring this all up from the top of show, Rabbi, is because the reason why we're recording this early is because you won't be here this Friday because you will be taking your beautiful bride to Sin City for your 10th anniversary.
We will be. We have, we've been talking about this for a long time, which was that for our 10th anniversary, we would go somewhere that was a little exciting. I've never been to Las Vegas before, and kind of excited to kind of see what everyone talks about, see that strip and the lights, and we're not big gamblers, so really that really has no appeal to me. But take $10-20 and when I lose it in 40 seconds, that's my casino experience. But yeah, we decided for a 10-year, we would definitely go to somewhere like Las Vegas, which we've never been before. So yeah, we're pretty excited.
Yeah, just know that you'll need about an extra 3 days when you get home just to take like a 3-day shower. So you'll have to shower everything, just cleanse, get to some of those sponges and the lava soap. You'll just be the superficiality and everything. We'll just need to bring that out. But
absolutely.
Yeah. So, but in any event, well, happy early anniversary.
Thank you. It's a little late, but
yeah.
We were last month.
Oh my gosh! All right.
It's just things. There's a lot of programs, a lot of events were going on in the temple, and this was the only weekend that actually worked out for us to be able to go away.
Okay. Well, let me just little caveat here that last time I was in a place where we were in a kind of a Sin City type place. My wife and I were at a late night comedy show, and we went there and it got pretty explicit there. So you might be in this situation when you're at Sin City, and we got called on, and the guy started asking us questions, and he started asking what my wife does, and then he asked, "What do I do?" And then I was just, oh gosh, this is going to go nowhere. This is going to go nowhere well. And I just kind of mumbled, I'm a priest. He goes, you're excuse me. Can you please say that a little bit louder, sir? I'm a priest. Oh, we have a father. We have a father here. And so he went on for a while, just kind of taking some swings, and he went down the obvious, altar boy stuff, from a Catholic perspective. But then he asked me to say a blessing over the entire sold out engagement. Which I was completely embarrassed to do, but then he got the whole place to chant, Father, Father, Father. So I say this to you that you never know, as a cleric, as a rabbi, you are in the midst of it. You'll be in the midst of Sin City. Who knows where God is going to call you to have your form of, here it comes again, evangelization or the sharing of the faith.
So it's funny you mentioned that just in terms of, either public display and how we go forward. When I was a kid, my parents took us to see the musical production of Cats. And although amazing, and I loved it, what terribly freaked me out, and still bothers me to this day, is when those cats started coming out on stage. Right? It's unnerving. It's uncomfortable. So even when we go to nightclubs, we go to comedy shows, I'm all for it. I love the humor, I love the laughter, I love the jokes. I love it. It's when they start picking on me that I'll look to my wife and I go, if they come off stage or they talk to me, I'm leaving. I'm out the door. And she will see this like wave of extreme uncomfortableness when we go to places and people come off the stage and they kind of interact in the audience. And I don't want, I don't like it.
But you're going to go see Zumanity while you're out there, which is Cirque du Soleil meets Skinamax. And they might come in the audience and start like petting your knee. Are you going to just hyperventilate and need to call 911?
So the nice thing is that unfortunately we can't afford those really nice seats. So we have the cheap seats all the way in the balcony. So if somebody does come to the balcony, if you've taken that long stretch to go and take the time to come up and to see me, I'm okay with that. I am okay with
okay. So as long as it's a couple tiers up,
yes.
you're going to get like more of their seat
I need
level
distance.
actors.
I need distance.
Yeah,
I need
sure.
distance.
Sure. There won't be a lot of exposure. All right. Well, today we're going to continue a little bit of this topic because it was such a hot topic last week, as sex always is. And we don't have your bride with us today. And since we are pre-recording this, unfortunately, we can't take your phone calls today, but you can always leave comments on the YouTube section here as all these videos are posted on the WSTU YouTube site. And leave a comment and we can respond to that on the next show. But we want to continue this understanding of really what is holy and unholy sex.
I think before we go through the holy and the intimacy that we are discussing, I think we need to go back and kind of call you on two things, Reverend Anderson.
Oh boy.
One is we played a couple weeks ago. Two truths, the one truth, what was it?
Two truths and a lie.
Two truths and a lie. And you had said that some of your truths, and we had to find the lie, was that you were married to the same woman twice, that you make an incredible meatloaf. And I believe the third was that you almost got into a fight with Coolio.
Yes.
But we never found what that lie was.
Okay.
And the second is that you challenged me with the Beverly Hills 90210 quote, which I did 7 days later incorporate into my closing remarks to my congregation. But we discussed last week, or 2 weeks ago, in fact, of Alyssa Milano. So let's find out update of where we're at with that.
Yes. Well, and as you know, this show is a lot about, we get into theology, but we also get into pop culture. We both get into our personal lives because we find a lot of people it's not often you have a conversation with a priest and a rabbi. So we're here on the show and this is where we get into kind of the fun stuff as well. So if you came here for theology, just hold your panties. We'll get right there. We're going to get right there. I mean your pants. Hold your pants. That's more appropriate. So let me see here. So the two truths and the lie. The one thing was, yes, Coolio did challenge me to a fight. He challenged when I was a nightclub doorman. He wanted me to go outside because I wouldn't let him and his posse in. And he said, you come outside and I got you on the streets. You were not safe on the streets anymore. So I was called out. I did marry my wife twice because we had more of a traditional African wedding, and then we had more of a traditional, I guess, Western wedding. So we got married twice in 6 months. And so the lie was, I don't have a great meatloaf, man. I wish I did.
So it's funny. It's funny that is your lie, and I only say that because one of the show's greatest number one fans is my 7.5-year-old. So she loves the show. Right. So she goes onto YouTube on Friday afternoons. She says, Dad, can we watch the radio show before you go off to temple? And we watched it. And she said, Dad, I bet you his lie is that he was married to the same woman twice. And I said, well, let's look at it. I said, Ellie, I was married to the same woman twice. And my daughter goes, that's not possible unless you didn't marry Mom. And I said, no. I was married both Jewishly, religiously married, and I was civilly married. So in that regard, two separate, although at the same time, ceremonies registered differently via Judaism and, of course, by the state to which we were married. But interesting that it was not the lie, because we my 7.5-year-old, we had a very healthy and engaging debate as to which lie did Father Anderson commit. And we both were convinced it was the marriage one to the same woman.
Sure.
Which is why when I texted you later to say, what is the lie? My daughter and I were literally standing there, waiting there by bated breath, waiting for your response. And when we found out that it was the meatloaf, we both went, oh.
I apologize, but what I will say, I'm happy that happened was that, in the church, we try to bring families together. And so this two truths and a lie game brought you and your daughter to have great father daughter time, and that just warms my heart. I mean, just even from a simple thing of two truths and a lie.
It sounds like more of an intellectual conversation. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing.
And
7.5-year-old.
A great
yes,
exposition on what marriage means, marriage under God, marriage under the state. Right? Because we all get married twice from that perspective. If you're getting a religious wedding, that's not the same thing. You got to also go to the courthouse.
Absolutely.
Right? So. Well, that's good. I'm glad we got that settled. And so I have not yet stepped up to the Alyssa Milano challenge. I need to find an Alyssa Milano quote, probably from Who's the Boss? Probably something that involves the line Angela, from Tony Danza. Maybe we'll see, but we are going to get there. But the reason why we bring up someone like Alyssa Milano is that Alyssa Milano for me was when I was a young kid, and this is where we're getting
a little truth telling.
Yeah, a little truth telling, where we're now getting into the meat of the show here. Because we wanted to talk about, again, how does the church, how does the synagogue, how do we in the 21st century respond to a culture that sex just sells everywhere, and then as clerics and as people who are trying to lead a congregation into good values that reflect our Holy Scripture, we feel that God is calling us and to have healthy relationships, with obviously involves sex. Alyssa Milano fits into this conversation because she was the first one for me when I was a young buck, being like, oh, that woman's really attractive. That's really weird. I've never seen a woman I've never thought of a woman that way. And that's like kind of like the love thing came in my head. I was like, wow, she's really attractive, her hair and everything like that. And so that kind of, excited me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to think about that. And you expressed that you had during that same time, because you and I are in the same age range here, your own gals.
Well, I mean, it's tough not to, to be born in the late 70s and go through the 80s and certainly have Alyssa Milano on the TV. It's hard not to fall in love with her. And as a young boy, absolutely. When I got a little bit older, it was Jennifer Connelly. Just beautiful, beautiful woman.
Right. Yeah, she is. Yes. So these sparks.
But it's amazing when you think about it. Like exactly what we're discussing now is, what is it about that? Is it the physical attraction? Is it the wanting to be close to somebody and there is that filter or that barrier that, am I ever going to have the opportunity to give Alyssa Milano a hug? No. I mean, I guess anything's possible, but the chances are very slim. Is it that boundary or that barrier that protects us from it, that makes it a little bit more alluring? Or is it just, these are human beings who happen to be, growing up celebrities, and what does that mean?
Are you talking about that the removal we have we have
there's a distance. There's a distance between us,
like the pseudo reality of us sitting here and then looking at the TV. It enhances a person's attraction as opposed to if they're in the same room with you.
Sure.
See, I don't know, because later in LA, I did an improv class and Alyssa Milano was there.
Wow.
So we were in the same improv class, which was holy cow. I want to go up to her and be like, you don't realize.
Did she say anything to you?
Yeah. I mean, we were in the same improv class, and I tried to invite her to a party because we were throwing this big, nonprofit party, and she didn't come. But still, it was different because it was in person. We were all kind of the same level playing field, right? Because we're all improv artists in that space. And it was still this wow factor of like, wow, you don't know what you meant to me when I was a kid. But from an attraction standpoint, it's almost was like we're on a level playing field because it's LA. So everyone who has a look shows up in LA. But it wasn't like wowed like I was when I was a kid. So I think part of it was just being a child, being wowed by this woman. And I think a lot of it goes into the personality. She was joyful. She had fun. It was great. She had this great independent spirit to her. There's
also a plot, right? You watch the show, there's a plot line to the show. Seeing her in an improv studio says hang on, this isn't, Samantha Maselli here. that suddenly now this is Alyssa Milano, who has taken an acting career, and somebody that is human, somebody that is conveys her own personality and has her own thoughts and has her own image. And seeing somebody, we would say in Hebrew, but seeing somebody panim el panim, face to face. And I wonder how much of that face to face interaction changes in our own mind, our perception of what, that attraction or that attractability has presented itself.
Well, I think that's where the objectification we sometimes we don't intentionally do. So when we can only speak from male perspective because I'm a man.
George Carlin used to talk about this in one of his stand-up acts, and he talked about fantasies, right? He says, we didn't know we fantasized. We just thought we thought about people,
Well, exactly.
But yeah.
You could have these great fantasies and thinking about this person, but then when you sit down with them, you get to talk with them, you realize maybe you guys don't have the same chemistry or whatever. That attraction rate that would have been 0 to 10, like you're on the city bus system, you see this woman, she's blowing your mind, and then you get the courage to finally go up and you sit down and you talk to her, and then as you're talking to her, you realize that maybe you guys are not on the same plane, whether it's intellectually or philosophically, or there's just not that charm that's there between you two. It's not a connection, and the attraction level goes down, and you end up, just get off the bus, and you guys don't stay connected. But we how much do we get caught up? Because I saw this a lot, where it really is more about the objectification. It's more about the physical and going for the physical. And as men. And as men, there is this, we talked about this last show, this drive to let me prove my masculinity by being able to kind of hunt again. It's built into our cellular system from thousands of years ago to go out and just hunt, bring the food home and present it to the woman. And so you still have this nature that makes you feel like a man, I think. And so you go out, and some men, you still get that excitement. I think it gets enhanced or lifted up in our culture to go be the man and go hunt and see if you can get the courage to go up to that woman and say the right line and ask her out and be enamored if you think that she's really physically attractive. And maybe it's not so much about the personality or about the internal life that's going on, but more of an achievement. And then, so you go for the achievement, you go for trying to get the victory, and then you realize it's not a good match. And then the guy just ghosts her and just walks away. Right. So it's a lot of it about this achievement of seeking, as opposed to where, I guess, from a Christian perspective, and that brings it back to that courtship, that what you're looking for is a true connection. And sure, part of that connection, you're going to have attraction towards one another, but you certainly take your time. It's not about a pursuit. It's not about a heat-seeking missile. To really take your time to get to know the person and feel the chemistry, and that can take weeks and weeks and months of dating where there's not physical interaction, right? You might want physical interaction, but you don't, so it's true Christian courtship. And I would say, no, you really shouldn't be kissing on
but I think, and even if we look at it from a Judaic perspective, I mean, it's about chemistry, right? Whether it be the physical, you're attractive, or the inner soul that says, wow, that really speaks to me. I know when I was dating my wife when we were living in Israel, she would always comment years later and say, what was the matter with you? I didn't answer my phone, so you called back 10 times. What's the matter with you? That's kind of stalkerish. And part of me says, no, you didn't answer your phone, so I'm going to keep calling until you do. Well, what if I was busy? You didn't have an answering machine. I would have left you a message. Texting really wasn't that big back then, so we never really texted. But a part of me that says, it was just that feeling of just wanting to connect in some way. Of I just want to talk. I just want to be around you. I think that it's that physical as well as that kind of spiritual, that chemistry that just brings two people together to say, I just want to hang out. I just want to hang out with you.
Which can often get lost if we put the physical nature above it. And
Absolutely.
so if we go from, if you're out there and you're in the dating world and you immediately are jumping in the bed with someone, you are now doing something physically that says like you're acting like a married couple, right? You're acting like a couple, and you're not. You just met each other. So it's like, no, I got to know, Father Christian, I got to know if we have the right vibe physically or sexually. But listen, you'll know that. Mm-hmm. You don't have to roll around in bed to know that you two are going to have really good chemistry. So I don't buy that argument. If you can hold off on that because it's going to mask everything and it gets emotions all just so jacked up now. I mean, what sex does, and when you throw it in there in a non-committed relationship, you are now playing with fire. You know, you're playing with fire, and oxytocin will really play an evil trick on you, especially for women. That oxytocin is say, oh, we're binding with this guy who we just had sex with, and we need more of this to feel good and feel better about ourselves. So now your own self-dignity, your own self-value is based off the release of this oxytocin, which comes from having sex with this guy who could be the worst partner in the world because you didn't give it time to figure out, is this going to be a lifelong partner?
But is that not also about the fear itself of loss? If I don't commit or go full in, I run the risk of losing this guy, this woman, whatever it may be, even before I know what it could be, if that makes sense.
Are you saying that you would need, if you're with a partner who says, hey, I like to have sex early on, and you say, I want to hold off because that's not how I roll. I want to wait for at least a committed relationship, if not marriage, that if you hold off, you might fear to lose this good prospect?
I think some may have that fear. I think it's a real fear.
Yeah, but you tell me this, as a man, and when you're in courtship, and if you're a relationship ready man, let's say you're a marriage ready man, and you're with this woman who's exciting you, she's amazing, you find her attractive, spiritually, the whole chemistry is so wonderful, and then it gets hot one night, hot and heavy, you guys are having some kissing, and then all of a sudden she just stops you, says, oh, wait a minute, I don't go there. I save that for marriage. If you are really marriage ready material as a guy, you're not just out there trying to have a good time, not just trying to get some notches on the board or whatever. I think you'll find that so sexy and attractive and be like, this woman is marriage material. This woman put the brakes on me.
But that's also, and like you said, it's one who's ready for the commitment, ready for the journey, and has sown one's oats, so to speak, to be able to really move on and go into that place to which they are comfortable. Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's an allure there as well that says this is about knowing my own limitations. I think it's also about knowing yourself. I think it's also about a huge mutual respect for one's partner, to be able to say, look, I definitely respect that. I definitely admire that. And if that's something that jives with you, of being able to say, this is important to me. And if it's important to you, I will make it work, and I'll wait, so to speak.
You're going to have to have a lot of patience, because right now we live in a hookup culture. And depending where you're at, I mean, it's just people go, you hit a bar, you go to a club, you hang out, you go on Tinder, you go whatever you're going to go. And there's a good chance that the other person might be saying, hey, so are we going to get down at some point? And so if you want to stick to these values of, I want to call in the one, as the famous book says, I want to call in the one, I want to call in the right person for my life, then yeah, you're going to have to be prepared for when you're saying, hey, I hold off. The person might be like, well, we're not the right match, because that's what I'm looking for.
Well, it's interesting. I remember when I was living in Jerusalem, I lived off a major street, and one night my wife and I were, at the time we were dating, and we were walking on the major thoroughfare in Jerusalem on King George Street. And I had said to my wife, whoever marries you, which I assure you will never be me, I assure you, won't be me.
I see the reverse psychology.
May they take care of you. And you'd be a very lucky person. But again, it won't be me. And a part of me, as I look back on that event 13, 14 years ago, is thinking to myself, why would I even say that? Because a week later, I was talking with the dean of students to see about going back to my respective college in London, and then in my final year of rabbinical school, working out of New York City. Well, if I wasn't committed, I wouldn't have even asked about the whole transference and being a visiting student in New York. But a part of me said that I think that was my wall that I put up, of being able to say, I don't know where this is going. And I think sometimes it's about vulnerability. I'm vulnerable. I don't know. And I'm scared, because I'm scared to where it could be in some semblance.
But in some ways, you did this great reverse psychology.
Yes, I
You did, which I think in some ways might have excited her even more. Be like, whoa, what do you mean? You're the mystery man here. What
Well,
are
she
you trying to
agreed.
say?
She agreed. Where she said, "Okay, definitely will not be you." But, 3 kids later, and
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot here to say. We can continue to talk more about this, about what does it really mean to be a healthy dater from I think it goes back to this natural law that, like, what Thomas Aquinas, from a Christian theologian, and from the 13th century, you take this idea, you have the scripture, you have the tradition, but all that it matches natural law of what really our reason says. So the Bible says, that fornication, sexual immorality is not right. Okay. It's sin. And what a lot of people would interpret this, because the Bible never says this explicitly, is don't have premarital sex. It never says that explicitly. It just says sexual immorality, which many people would interpret as sex outside of marriage. So if that is the call for us, but we know in culture, 90% of the people on you go anywhere are probably not practicing that. I would say that practicing those biblical principles of staying committed to your beliefs and values, even from a natural law perspective, not saying because the Bible tells me so, it will call in faster and in a much more healthy way the man of your dreams, the man who's looking to share the same values, the man who's not looking for a hookup, the man who's not looking to date multiple women at the same time, the man who's really, truly ready to be a good father, to be a good husband. You as a woman will have to wait and have to be patient, because there's a lot of fish out there you're going to have to wade through, who are just looking to get down and get busy. But you, if you want to call in, because I'm telling you, men get so excited when they are ready. It might be when they're 30, it might be when they're 35, it might be when they're 40 now in 2018. They're saying, I'm sick of just the games. I really want to find a good woman. The woman who says, oh, hold up, I don't do that till I get married. He's thinking, oh man, that's wife material.
But as you said, it is so far and few between in today's culture. Not to say that there aren't people, absolutely. And I think that there is, it's a missing value that I think society today, we don't have. I mean, you go back to, the 1950s, 1960s in Britain, and you happen to be dating somebody and go take a hotel room. You're not married. You don't get a hotel room. You get separate rooms. And I think it's about that level of modesty. I think it's about the respect for the self and the body, is that people get married and then they undergo whatever life challenges may present itself. And I think that, today it's not often that you will hear of somebody of a 45-year-old virgin. Right. And if you do, which I do watch a lot of reality TV. So I do see some of this on TV, and a part of me that says, I have a lot of respect for you. I do. Because it's not easy today with the pressures of society and the environment and everything else that's out there that's in your face. Remember as a kid watching commercials of, scantily clothed women. That was, exceptionally, eye-catching. And what was the ad for? For jeans. Where are the jeans? Where are they? And I think those images that we see, or, the model that's 42 pounds when she's, presented herself, is it realistic? Or is it idealistic? Is it something that we idealize and want to become? Or is it something that is ingrained in our society? And I think for some, when I do hear or see some of those experiences of people saying, I waited before marriage, and I have a healthy relationship, and a part of me says that's exactly it. Is that I think it's healthy. I think it's times where we can look at with a non-judgmental presence, but being able to say that and to be able to look at that and say, wow, I really respect your strong sense of values, because I don't think we get that so much today. I think not to say it's eroded, or I think a lot of our values today are slightly compromised and challenged in ways that our culture and our society have made it.
Yeah, and I would say as clerics, as priests and rabbis, or just as elders, how we looked at as elders, there's never too late for you to make a switch and change it up. So if you've been trying the hookup culture, you've been trying to, maybe you've been, you go in the routine where you go out, you're with someone for maybe 3-4 weeks, and maybe you have sex a couple times, or you're hooking up. Maybe it's not even just the sex, it's whatever beforehand, and it's not working. You're really honestly looking for a good partner in your life, and you're not getting there. It's just goose eggs after goose eggs. You're hitting your head against the wall. You're not finding good people. You're always finding the bad boy or the crybaby or all these different guys who are not really good marriage material. Maybe it's time, just try it. Give it a fast. Try a fast of you are going to do a detox from a maybe even like a dating detox, where you're going to pull back and say, okay, what am I really looking for, and what can I cut out to create this space for?
But I think that also takes a tremendous amount of self-awareness. If it ain't working for me, instead of blaming the world or blaming society,
blaming all the bad women or bad men out there, they're all damaged goods.
I tried this and this, that, and the other, and I've been burned, I've been heartbroken. Their part says, then look inward. What is it about those qualities that have brought you where you are? And then maybe to do some real soul searching.
Why are you attracting the same kind of partner? That's one thing. That's the only thing you could control in your whole dating life is yourself. You can't control the other people. So if you keep on, I hear this a lot, there's nothing but just bad boys or guys just want to hook up. There's no good men out there. It's like, if you keep on encountering the same guy, all you could control is yourself. And we're magnets. We're spiritual magnets. Like attracts like, right? So if you're attracting that, maybe there's something going on there. You got to look at yourself and be like, okay, what's going on inside of me? My own insecurities, my own way that I view myself, that might be attracting this kind of partner into my life, because I want to switch it up. I want a partner who's going to be more grounded, who's going to be more really ready for a family, who's really more mature, who's more spiritual. You got to switch things up. So, hey, we're going to take a break right here, and we're going to come back and just continue this conversation, and mostly just, what makes sex holy and unholy too, even in a marriage. That can sex be unholy even in a marriage? So all that coming up just a few minutes. Hello, welcome back to A Priest and a Rabbi here at WSTU 1450. Maybe you're streaming us online. Maybe you're just on the radio. Maybe you just were able to get a signal off your phone and you're out in Kentucky somewhere and randomly it bounced into your car. We are just happy to be with you right now. A place where a priest and a rabbi get together. We talk about everything from pop culture to what's current. And we try to bring our respective theologies into it, our respective traditions. And respective scripture that a lot of them that we share. So we continuing this conversation about in the last for the first half of the show, we were talking more about really courtship and dating and how to really have healthy dating principles or courtship principles that can maybe encourage a healthier sex life. Or maybe holding off on the sex life that might be, to be able to encourage a better partner, to find a better partner in your life. And yes, we reference that our traditions and our scripture definitely support that. But then also, how do you deal with that? And how do you teach that in a 2018 culture where most people spend like, Rabbi, yeah, I've had sex 18 times. Okay. And I'm 25. So what do you want me to do with that? So we talked about how do you approach that? And so,
I do like how you used and referenced just the word 18, just an arbitrary number. But of course, as Jews, 18, chai, life, it's quite a significant number. So I do appreciate the numerology there.
I'm getting synced here. I'm getting synced, brother. I'm learning a lot here.
Yes,
I'm you are challenging me every week on my understanding of Hebrew scripture, which is horribly referred to sometimes in the Christian faith as the Old Testament, but because it's not the Old Testament to the Judaic world.
Well, no, for us as Jews, it's the only.
Yes, the only Testament. So we sit there and be like, yeah, it's like the old Ford in my driveway next to the Cadillac, which is the New Testament. You know what I mean? It just has a.
So I do have to say though that one of the things, especially with doing this show, that has been really impactful, and I'll speak personally, is that it has. We say in our tradition, and there's a very famous phrase that comes out of Talmudic literature that says, acquire yourself a teacher, acquire yourself a friend. And I do have to say that through our interactions, because this isn't something we decide when we are going on the air at 9:00 on a Friday morning, that we'll meet at 3 minutes to 9 and say, how are we going to go through this? That you and I meet every single week and we talk about, different theological challenges and how we want to frame the show and, what message we want to come out. And I do want to say that it is something that it means a lot to me, and something that I very much value your friendship and our collegiality that we have together. I just want to say it's been very meaningful for me.
Oh, well, the feeling's very mutual, brother.
So, if there are people out there that, if we could have sponsorships and would like to continue the show for months and years down the road, we'd be more than happy to do that. But I think it is something that, from both a Judaic and a Christian perspective, to be able to share our ideas, and in no way are we promoting or even discussing that we are the end all and be all authority on it, because I think that it's a growing and a maturing process throughout all of our careers.
Yes,
but is also being able to I know in the last few months of just being really, really inspired and really moved by the conversations that we've had and the seemingly missing gaps in my growing up of being Jewish and not fully understanding elements of Christianity. I mean, I was taught Christianity in rabbinical school by Karen Armstrong out of London.
Oh gosh! Karen Armstrong?
Yes,
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So but beyond having the year where I did Christianity with Karen, it was something that we're not fully exposed to, and I think being able to have a conversation with you in a respectful but at the same time jovial manner of, okay, I'm really struggling with this, or what's your perspective on a topic like healthy relationships? What does that mean? What does that mean to be committed? Are there fears? Are there is there anxiety that's attributed to it? And really, what is a healthy relationship? I mean, you and I are both married. I tend to think that I have a healthy relationship, but the grass is always greener on the other side. That somebody may say, well, maybe it's not. Well, what does that mean? I mean, I treat my wife with respect. I love my wife. I love my family. Is that model that you alluded to a little bit earlier of, having to provide, and a part of me says it's a mutual partnership that I think when we both engage in it of a respect and a knowledge that it's above and beyond us, that not only, I see it from a two-pronged perspective. One is the respect and the love that I share to my wife and my wife shares to me, but also the commitment that we both have shared, with God, of saying, I enter into this holy union together. When we say it in our prayers, we say the words, Bruchim habeim b'shem Adonai. We welcome you both as a wedding couple here to this house in the name of God. And I think that there's something, really powerful about those relationships.
And I think that's what fears a lot of us in the church, at least, that we don't have, since a lot of folks who are maybe in the marriage age range are not coming to church as often, that they don't, or they would just want to get married in the church, but they are not going to go through, since they're not really active church members, they're not going to go through the premarital work that needs to get done. And then they don't get that premarital work, which sometimes exposes some major gaps that are going to be there, which you as their priest or as their rabbi can say, hey guys, let's slow down a little bit here. I'm noticing a pattern here, and I'm looking over this, and I think you guys really need to pay attention to this. Your financial management takes on things are just a disaster, and this is going to burn a hole in your marriage. So can you take some time before, let's hold off on this date. I mean, those things can happen,
Is that a requirement for you? Like when you meet with wedding couples, is it encouraged or is it required?
Required.
It's required.
It's required. And since not a lot of folks, since we are still in this time where we're redefining church population as we know it in different parts of America, sometimes your context can be that you have an age range where you get maybe the younger families and their kids, then you skip like 18 to maybe 28, 18 to 25, maybe. This is not for every church, but like our church has that. And then you can go into the 40s and the 50s, and this is the people who came back to the church. And then of course you have the 60s, the greatest generation, who are just so diehard committed to the church. But you're missing this sponge-like part of a demographic that is just seeking guidance and understanding, especially when it comes to relationships, things like understanding sex. And the church used to be a place, and the church has done its fair share of mistakes to lose people's trust in that area. But it used to be a place where you could have a cleric who could sit down with you, and you're a couple that's maybe dating or in their courtship who can give you guidance. And so, yes, for sure, if a couple just came to us and they're not even part of our church family, they're part of another church, they want to get married at our church, I have to sit down with them and still have a nice, healthy meeting with them to make sure, do they have a pastor who's active in their life? Are they going through premarital work? Can I check in with our pastor to see how that premarital work is going? And then we could talk about you getting married at our church, either by me or by your pastor. But we need to know that is happening, because without the premarital work, it can turn into a disaster. We all know it is. I mean, you've gone through the first, year of courtship. It's great. Everything's roses. You've maybe seen some imperfections, but maybe not all the imperfections. You haven't dealt yet with the imperfections and realizing this person is not this wonderful person, that they actually have some pretty rough spots to them. Can you love them through it? The way that the
honeymoon is over.
The honeymoon is over, and you realize, holy crud, we have different views on sex. We have different views on money. We have different views on our in-laws. And now we're kind of looking maybe like, do we make the wrong choice here? Right. And so the premarital part is like, guys, and this is why living together ahead of time, I would say, yes, from a religious perspective, absolutely not. And I think the scripture supports that as well. But I would just say, let me be your relationship coach, don't do it. And the stats support that. When you live together before marriage, the stats are much higher for divorce. Why? Well, you sit there and you're hanging out like, oh, this is good. We got this down. We've been living together for 3 years. We're splitting rent. We're paying bills. We're acting like a married couple. And then you go get married, and then you come back and something's changed. You don't have an out clause anymore. There's no escape button that you can push. And that freaks people out. It'd be like, holy cow, before there was an escape button, because we were just like, we're like boyfriend, girlfriend, and then we decided to do this. Or you don't have this amazing thing of like, now we're moving in together, and this is a big step, and we got to put all our best. We got to really bring our best to this relationship, because this is something different. We've actually left our respective apartments, joined into one home, and things are going to be different. And I'm prepared for this. And I realize it's going to be challenging. And so I think that excitement gives ambition and says, okay, maybe we get a counselor to help us through this because this is big. But when not, it can get lazy. So I think this is all just, again, how the church and the synagogue and how religious institutions can help, because our teachings are based upon the scripture that's based upon, I think, good courtship. I think they're in our respective scriptures, there are very good lessons and stories and edicts on how to have a healthy courtship, of how to take your time. And it takes a lot of time. And also how to have how to have a healthy sex life, which we keep on coming back to around as well. So let's get to that a little bit, right? So Rabbi, when you think of, Thomas Aquinas, who is, obviously a Christian theologian, he talks about that, and he's in the 13th century, that the three main things of sex that they need to be is that there's three things that they all always good sex should be about. It should be about, and this is for a married couple, procreation, strengthening of the union, and pleasure. Those three things should be all kind of active. And when you don't have that, then it falls in maybe to a sinful way of looking at marriage. Looking at sex. So if you're missing that second one, strengthening the union, because you're just looking to have a good Friday night thrill, it's going to lead to hurt and pain and loss, and you're taking advantage of someone's body, and you don't really want to be there for them.
But we're talking about one who is in a committed relationship, one who is married. Yes.
Well, that these three things would say that number two part is, strengthening the union. I mean, the part of the reason why you're having sex with your spouse is, I would say it's probably, they're assuming that you're, and they would also say that the sin of adultery, why is it sin? Well, because you go to, it's not for adultery, could be for procreation. So it hits that one. It could go for pleasure. So number three, but number two, you're not trying to strengthen your union. Mm-hmm. You're trying to actually dismantle the union you have with your wife. But to pick up
on just to kind of pick those words apart.
Sure.
That's what we as Jews do. We look at language and pick it apart. And one of our famous commentators, Rashi, would look at what we call the Peshat, the simple meaning of the text. And if we look at the simple meaning of the text in terms of procreation, yes, obvious, it's fairly self-explanatory. Pleasure, again, we could unpack what that means.
Yes.
Does that mean for both partners? Is it for one only? What are those mitigating factors that perhaps would lead for one not to have a pleasurable experience, whether it be pain or whether it be thoughts or stress or other factors, environmental factors out there. But the second, remind me of the second.
The second was strengthening the union.
Strengthening the union, and I think it's the term itself, union. It's a partnership. It's two people engaged in activity, and if it doesn't strengthen it, I think the challenge there is, what are some of the factors that would unravel a relationship? A hard day at work, and if I've had a hard, stressful day at work, and my wife is in the mood, does that mean that because I'm not fully in it, that I haven't fulfilled that obligation? Because each of those obligations or requirements, whatever we call them, part of me that says, and again, I don't ever profess to, have the knowledge of, Thomas Aquinas, but, I would assume that they're also godly acts, right? That pleasure is a godly act, that there's something there that you're invoking some spiritual connection of a relationship, of it being healthy. Procreation, the whole understanding is, to be fruitful and multiply, to encourage healthy relationships through sexual encounter. I think the union, to strengthen a union, is about the union you make with your partner, but also a spiritual connection that you make with God in some way.
Well, sure. And I mean, would you agree that when you have a healthy sexual encounter, right, with your spouse, that there's going to be times, and yes, where maybe you're in a different place, your mind's somewhere else, you had the long day, maybe your spouse is much more open to it, but you don't want to be, you want to choose in, you want to be the good spouse. You don't want to be like, I'm tired, I've got a headache. You don't want to be that guy. You're like, no, it's my wife. My gosh, I love her, I want to be there. And so now the question is it the actual act itself? I think what Aquinas is getting at is that it comes from a selflessness, right? That I am getting into this sexual encounter because really it's not just for my own needs. I'm not just trying to get my own socks off. Like, I am into this because I'm excited about sharing this incredible intimacy. This physical intimacy is only shared with one other person your whole life, and that's from the womb out, right? Never again do you have this kind of physical intimacy again. And I've chosen the rest of my life to share it with you, right? So it's never, if I share with other people, it gets tainted. It's not that special, but I only share with you this incredible thing. And when we're in the act, if it's always about you, and then while you're with me and you're making it always about me, I mean, that's where the magic happens. That's where it's amazing. Now, it doesn't happen like that all the time. We're human beings, of course, and for all the factors we talked about before, sometimes it's just, you're not fully present. I mean, we're humans. But when you can hit that sweet spot where you are really both present and so incredibly into the other person and being so selfless, I think that building up of the union is just so powerful.
But it's an interesting notion what Aquinas says, because it effectively says that each one is not independent of itself. You need one with the other two, right? So you have it of procreation, of creating a healthy and solidified union together. Through the union, you will get more of a pleasurable experience for both parties that leads to a healthy relationship or a healthy encounter, a healthy experience.
Well, I think Aquinas was actually kind of broke away from the big tradition for the Catholic Church at the time. I mean, Augustine was like, now that's more 4th century of him saying it's only about procreation. It was very matter-of-factly. In The City of God, in his book, he just says it's almost like literally the character commands his what to rise up, and then let's do this act so we can continue the human race. Where Aquinas is like, well, hold up. This doesn't have to just only be about procreation. There is pleasure that is involved with this. There is this building up of the union. And he almost at times pulls back and says it doesn't always have to be about procreation, right? It's just a matter of pleasure and of union between a husband and a wife together. He goes as far as to say that what if there was a homosexual couple that could have procreation? Would that change the rules, right? Would that say that okay, from a godly perspective, that it's okay because all of a sudden there was a pregnancy that happened? So are we saying is that the reason why homosexuality gets this sinful take on it, because there is no procreation, and this gift that God gives us should be about procreation? That's a whole other show altogether. And that's, a big rabbit hole there. But yeah, so I think one thing to lift up here for everyone is just the act of sex, of how so much of a gift of it is, the selflessness that I think that's involved with it, and how the act of sex is so much better and more fulfilling when it comes from a very selfless giving place with you and your partner. That if you're both giving 110% to the other person, I'm thinking about you. I just want to care for you. I just want to love on you because you're such a gift from God. God brought us together, let us share this together, and gave us this gift of sex. Then it's just this beautiful way to experience one another. You can't experience a human relationship with anyone else that way. Just you and your wife. There's no one else. I mean, you could, but you deteriorate the relationship.
It's about being mindful.
Yeah. What's your final thought, brother?
I think that's it. Just to be mindful. To be mindful of the interactions that we share with our respective others, and to constantly recheck ourselves and remind ourselves that there's a union there. There is a connection, and sometimes it's not always about us. It's about we. It's about the we.
Coming up in the next one, we will be talking about the Immaculate Conception. Why is it important for Christians to believe in Immaculate Conception? And I think the rabbi will have some great questions about that, by like saying, Father Christian, why? Why couldn't Mary and Joseph have sex? And so we're going to talk about that on the next show, plus a bunch of other things. God bless you. We will see you next week.